Hello and welcome back to OneTake DeckTech. My name is Tucker and I'm here today to talk about Florian the Rotwood Harbinger. A little bit about me: I'm a member of Team Bloodrush Fellows here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are sponsored by the store Iron Lion Collectibles. I am the creator of the mobile app FaB Life, so if you haven't used that, please check it out, and if you do, thank you so much for using it. We'll have an update coming soon with all of the heroes from the Hunted, and you're all coming to iPhone very soon, so please check for that. I am an Oldhim player long term. He was my main, so I very slow, control-y play style is definitely my bread and butter. Florian here, as we'll see in a minute, is more along those lines. I am a Battlehard winner, so I won with Teklevasen in Bright Light Seal. That was about a year ago. But this is the list that I've been playing for basically all of the ProQuest London season. So some results on this list: I did prize split in the finals with Mercy Bickle, who you might have seen recently get finals at Worlds a couple weeks ago. And then at 3 other tournaments that I went to, I bubbled at 9th, I got top 8, and I got top 8. One of them was really unfortunate. At my home store of Iron Lion, I actually went 5-0 undefeated and got first seed in Swiss to only pair into Enigma at top 8 and just get absolutely rolled. It is what it is, it happens. I'm here today dressed as a tree. Hello, this is my Halloween costume because I had so much fun playing Florian that I wanted to just embody that spirit a bit more, so thanks to the help of my wonderful girlfriend Caitlin. So without further ado, let's dive into Florian. What makes him tick? What is Tree Hugger Florian? So first of all, the overview of the deck. This is, like I said earlier, very Guardian style, very slow, patient, methodical, where you start very slow and you ramp up and you ramp up and you start just pounding on the opponent with either really tall arcane or really powerful effects like an Arcane Seeds into a Felling of the Crown. The core cards of this list are going to be Millennium Tree, Felling, Canopy Shelter is kind of cool in a highlight, of course Arcane Seeds, pretty much exactly what you'd expect. It's pretty standard Florian, but with Millennium Tree. Millennium Tree is at the core of the build, but it's not the card that you force out, and we'll talk a bit about that more in a second here. Overall, you're going to sort of have a weak first cycle and a strong second cycle sort of mindset, where you are patient, you're okay using life as a resource when you need to, but try to keep it high when you don't need to. Let's dive into the hero and equipment. So Florian is, of course, Mordred on a stick. If you have 8 or more Earth cards in your banished zone, then you make 1 more of each token that you generate. So this includes Rune Chants, whenever you generate those. This includes Embodiment of Earth, whenever you create those with the chess piece. And of course it includes Might tokens, whenever you block with Canopy Shelter. You're making 1 more than you would otherwise once your hero is online. We are using Reaping Blade as the weapon. I actually really do not like the life gain limitation. It ends up hurting yourself more than it hurts your opponent, but a rate of 1 cost 3 power is just too good to pass up. It works extremely well with Grasp of the Arknight and similar cards. A lot of the turns you will, my hand doesn't really do much, block with 3 cards, hold on to a blue, pay 2 to activate Grasp and create a Rune Chant, pay 1 to swing. That is a blue for a 4 damage play. As a Guardian, I love this rate. When your hero is online, this creates 2 Rune Chants, and so you swing a 1-card 5. This is the base of your deck. If you cannot do anything else, if your hand doesn't do much, which honestly does come up a fair bit, this is your bread and butter combo. Going to the helmet, Plume is, man, I've never thought this card would be actually good, but it is so freaking good. So you are looking to get an extra card that you have already played or blocked with back into your hand. This says instant, pay 3, and grab an Earth action or instant card from your graveyard to your hand. A lot of the times I'm going for Felling of the Crown, but a lot of times I'm going for Channel the Millennium Tree, and sometimes I'm going for Arcane Seeds. So just to give an example of what you can do with this, I've had games against Assassin where it's like 1-to-1, and my opponent goes, aha, I've got you. Flick daggers, you're dead. And I say, okay, well, in response, I will Plume, grab Arcane Seeds, play it out, life, go up to 2, take your dagger down to 1, and then because they hedged their bets into this, they just kind of lost from that play. Having an instant response to grab a card that you can play to your hand instantly is crazy good. A lot of the times you will grab Channel the Millennium Tree because if you get your opponent down to 3 life, you can just grab this and kill them with a 3 blue play. A lot of times grabbing Felling is really good, just having a 4th copy of Felling. Some of the math, for example, so if I have 2 blues in my hand that do nothing, again, this is not that uncommon in this list, as we'll get to. Maybe you need this pressure to win the game or you lose right here, and oh no, you drew a dud hand, GG. Well, you pitch 1 blue to activate Plume. You grab, let's just say, Felling out of the graveyard into your hand. But in grabbing an Earth out of grave, you have now put the Plume into grave. So you are net neutral on Earth cards. So it's not like you have to be really cautious with this, then you pitch the second blue to play Felling. You've just turned a hand of 2 useless blues into Felling of the Crown. This is an amazing play, and it can turn the tide, or it can secure a victory that you were very close to. So Plume overall, very, very good. It does not go into every matchup, but it is our primary target for headpiece. Barkskin of the Millennium Tree, there's not much to say. This card is freaking amazing. It's like having Husk twice. It just blocks for 1,000,000. There are times where you will want to block with this before it's online or before your hero is online. It's very rare, but I definitely would recommend not putting all your eggs into the basket of blocking 1,000,000. You want to be most efficient and get the most value, and sometimes value isn't raw numbers. It's about the ebb and flow of momentum and the context of the match. But overall, this card just blocks a lot, and it is really, really good. I can't imagine running any other chess piece in Florian. Grasp, as we said earlier, is core to the build. You would never not run Grasp. This list does not have any other arm slots, not even Vex and Quillhand. We are just always, always, always on Grasp of the Arcanite because it fits into our cost curve and it fits into our hero ability. So you don't have a ton of cards that create rune chance, but you can make 1 or 2 every single turn with this Grasp. And lastly, Well Grounded is just a really good card. I am very biased too because it is actually Oldham's Earth React on an equipment. It's awesome. You just on demand prevent 2 damage. That is huge. It helps you play around attack reactions. It helps you play around instants. It helps you play around so many things. Sometimes you can just pop it to get an extra Earth engrave if you really need to. It's so flexible and it comes online so quickly in an Earth focused deck that there's no reason to run anything else. These boots are amazing. So this is the default equipment lineup. Let's scoot down to the other equipment here. Phase Purgatory is the one main sideboard equipment. Some matches, or every match, you should ask yourself, is Phase Purgatory relevant here? Usually the answer will be no, and you run Plume. But some matchups you say, well, Phase Purgatory is so necessary that it's better here. So this would be like, for example, Guardian. When they go Zealous or Rouse or E-Strike, go again. This is super impactful. There are just very specific matchups where Phase Purgatory can shut them down entirely. Against decks where they just go too fast and you have to stop them, like Aurora, like Dash.io, Phase Purgatory is huge. This tends to be the higher pressure matchups where they are pushing into your face and you're sort of holding on for dear life, trying to slow them down. Whereas Plume is more for matchups where it's maybe a back and forth, more of an ebb and flow, like a medium pace or a slower pace, and it gives you more of the time to set this up. Then we have Arcane Barrier here. My default Arcane Barrier is the boots, so against like Rune Blades where I just need AB1, I run Null Rune Boots. I do have AB4 here, primarily because into Wizard, I want to have Well Grounded. Even though they're not Arcane Barrier, they are Prevent 2, so this is like having an Oasis on your feet. It's so good. So if I want AB3 and Prevent 2 on my equipment, I need Crown of Dichotomy and Dyadic Carapace instead of Null Rune Boots. So this, in theory, is just for Kano and maybe for Verdance. It almost never came up, but it's primarily just Null Rune Boots. One thing worth noting, though, into Aurora, I run AB3 into Aurora. That's crazy, you say. She's a Rune Blade. Don't you just run AB1 into Rune Blade? Normally, yes. She is a bit of an exception due to the Flicker Wisp combo. So a lot of the times you'll get to turns where she's like 2 Arcane, 2 Arcane, 2 Arcane, 2 Arcane, 1 Arcane, 2 Arcane. And if you have AB1, you're going to take a lot of damage. If you have AB3, you're still going to take a lot of damage, but it helps to mitigate these turns a lot more. And I found that in games, this has really made the difference and been worth it because you can still block 2 physical with this. You still have Phase Purgatory, you still have Grasp, but it allows you to preserve your life and draw up the game just a little bit more, so much more efficiently that it is so worth it. So into Aurora, Dyadic Carapace and Null Rune Boots, that you have AB1 and AB2 for all their shenanigans, and you can pitch your blues on the pop-off turns. All of the Rune Blades, Null Rune Boots is my default Arcane Barrier 1. And into Wizard, we have AB3 with the boots, not using Null Rune Boots. So that is our equipment lineup. Let's look at the main board. This is the default 60. Now, as a Guardian player, what I'm used to is having like a default 45, and then this matchup put in these, this matchup put in those, this matchup put in these, and it's all contextual. This list doesn't really play like that. This list is nice because you have a default 60, and in most of the field, you're just running this default 60. It comes up most matches. I will go over the sideboard after this, but first let's look at what we're running most of the time. So going card by card here, first of all, Arcane Seed's Life. It's everything you can want and then some. It's life gain that sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. It's creating 2 rune chance with Go Again, sometimes 4 rune chance with Go Again. So I've had players say, well, what if this is not online? Is this card bad? And let's think about that. If you are just going to play Arcane Seeds, no life, no hero ability, and you just create 2 rune chance and Go Again, is this good. If you've played Viserai, if you've played against Viserai or Vincent or anyone that plays Read the Runes and starts building up rune chants, and they make 3 rune chants and pass their turn, that feels pretty powerful. It feels like a good setup. This sacrifices 1 of those 3 rune chants for Go Again, which is huge. So just in and of itself, Arcane Seeds with no other effect is already a great card, and it blocks 3 as an Earth card. This card's amazing. You're never not going to run this. It comes up in a lot of different ways. Sometimes you grab it off a plume. It's just a really good power card in your deck. You will always run 3 of them. It's so core. It's such a great card. Moving on to Autumn's Touch. A lot of players are on either all 9 or 6 of these. I personally replace the yellow Autumn's Touch with Channel the Millennium Tree, and we'll come back to that in just a second here. But looking at these, of course, blue block 3 Earth card, what's not to love? Autumn's Touch is the classic, it's the OG. 3 for 7 is also a good rate, and for the type of deck that we are, this mid-range, block with 2 cards, use 2 cards, Guardian style, play patient but keep pressure up, the 3 for 7 that blocks 3 is a pretty good rate for us because it also ups our Earth count. So we do really like Autumn's Touch red. The yellow is not bad. I would not recommend, or I don't think it's wrong to run yellow Autumn's Touch. I think it's perfectly viable. I personally just didn't love it. The 6 didn't really come up a whole lot. I tried running Thistle Bloom in place of it since it was a non-attack that works with embodiments. Also didn't really come up, sadly, as much as I really wanted Thistle Bloom to be a good card. So I said, what if we just run 6 Autumns and this card? So before we even think about what Millennium Tree does, let's consider competing with that slot, that is yellow Autumn's Touch or Thistle Bloom. It is still a 3-block Earth card. It is a non-attack, so it works with embodiments, so it's actually better with Bark Skin and the like for blocking. It is an Earth card, so it fits that whole role very similarly, where it's a block 3 Earth card. You know, you're happy to just get it into grave, have that in rotation, all of that stuff. But when you play this out, this card is amazing. It is amp 3, and that's it. So when you send 1 rune chant, that rune chant now hits for 4 arcane. The opponent can run more than Arcane Barrier 1, but as we found locally, that is a trap. If I'm stripping the card from your hand from you pitching extra, I'm disrupting your hand, and that's what I want to do anyway. So it ends up being more efficient for you to just AB1 and take 3, or take the full 4. This card, because I have so many Earth in the deck, let's see exactly how many. We're on 37 Earth by default. That's more than half the deck. So this will often stay for 2 counters, which means I play it and I trigger it, then it goes to 1 counter. I trigger it and it goes to 2 counters. I trigger it and then it dies. So you're getting 3 triggers off of 1 channel often. Now, of course, you're not going to play out 3 channels like ever. There are plenty of games where you don't get to play out any of them. Most games you play out 1, maybe 2. But let's think about 1 Channel the Millennium Tree on the field for 3 turns, as we just said. That is amping 3 times. We're coming in for 4 arcane, 4 arcane, 4 arcane. So this is 3, 6, 9 unpreventable damage if they are on Arcane Barrier 1, which, as we just said, is probably correct for them. So 1 tree leaks through a quarter of their health. This card is amazing. So Guardians often struggle because they can block well, they can go tall, they can keep pressure up, but they can't really push that damage. A lot of times if you just block out Guardian, they're really like looking for creative ways to get the damage through. This solves that problem. And into Enigma, the honestly worst matchup for this deck. This is your bread and butter to have even a chance at it, because if they have a board state and you're sending unpreventable damage, you're going to clear that board state, and then it stays up for 2 more turns. So it really, really helps you hedge your bets into Enigma and get that board state. This card, man, I could talk so much about this, but just to go a little bit more into it, it is the core of the deck, but it is not your end-all be-all card. There will be plenty of games where you do not play out channel, and that is totally fine. It is not all that your deck is doing. It is just one of your power cards. Think of it like Felling of the Crown. Sometimes you just have to block with Felling. When you play it, it's amazing. The card's awesome. It's so good, but it's not like something that you're going to take 20 damage to send bottom of card in 8, right? So Channel the Millennium Tree is the same way. You're trying to preserve at least 1 or 2 back into the deck until you get the room to play it out. Sometimes you're trying to have 1 on the field, 1 in the graveyard so that you can play Plume. This is one of the most skill expressive cards in the deck in terms of how you preserve it, how you decide not to preserve it, but it is your bread and butter. I would recommend experimenting with this card a lot. It is so fun to use, and this is really what separates my Tree Hugger Florian list from other standard lists. Admittedly, the name is a reference to Channel Millennium Tree as well as Felling, as well as Summer's Fall, but truly I think what sets this build apart is Channel the Millennium Tree, and it's been absolute gas for me. I absolutely love it, hence the tree costume. It's just been too fun. So highly recommend this card. It's awesome. Moving on, we have CNC. CNC is just an amazing card. Love to disrupt. It blocks 3. What's not to love? It's so good. It's a 1 card that forces 2 cards out. E-Strike, same deal. It's just generically very good. A lot of times you'll have these weird, awkward red hands because we're sort of forced into a 24, 25, 26 blue count, which sadly leads to some consistency issues. I really wanted to go up to 30 blues personally, but you just sacrifice too much power doing that. So E-Strike really helps sort of fix these all red hands or apply pressure or go wide. It's very flexible and comes up quite a lot. Very, very good. Fits into the deck very well. Felling, I feel like I don't really need to say a whole lot. This card is amazing. It is absolutely gas. A lot of people have said, well, how do you feel about Felling if it only attacks for 4? And my answer is it's still amazing. We assume that the card that the opponent bottoms is worth 3 value or 4 value, which means this is a 3 for 7 or a 3 for 8. That's at worst on rate. And getting another Earth into your grave so that the rest of them will now be for 8. So yeah, it doesn't feel as fully impactful as it could, but this card is still amazing even when it is just coming in for 4. Card is amazing in general. Again, it's one of the main Plume targets. It's primarily Channel and Felling. Taking an aside here about Plume, something I should have mentioned earlier. When playing this deck, keep an eye on your graveyard. When you're decomposing, don't just grab the first Earth cards you see and get them out. Really think about what you're banishing. Ideally, you will keep 1 Arcane Seeds, 1 Channel the Millennium Tree, and 1 Felling in your graveyard as long as possible so that they are online for Plume. You always want to, like, you don't know when a Plume turn is going to come up. Sometimes you'll just draw a terrible hand and go, it's Plume or nothing here. And it could be early in the game, it could be late in the game, it could not come up at all. You don't know. You need to be ready for it. So because of that, you need to, as much as possible, keep 1 Arcane Seeds, 1 Millennium Tree, and 1 Felling in your graveyard for rotation. And then when you can't, be aware that that is the current state. So if you draw into a Plume hand, that you know the context of what your graveyard is looking like. So moving on, we have 6 Rootbound Carapace. This card is awesome. I love D-Reacts. I love blocking. Again, Guardian Influence. This card really helps you get online faster. Normally, you have to take an action point to decompose, to attack and decompose. This is the only card in the game that lets you decompose without using an action point. And that is so huge because typically this hero wants to come online by turn 4 or 5. I'm going to say that again. This hero wants to come online, on average, by turn 4 or turn 5. So, Rootbound Carapace is pretty crucial. I could see cutting 1 yellow and running 5 instead of 6. I was sort of on the fence about that. I ended up sticking with the full 6, and it felt pretty good. Not much more to say about this card. It's really good for decomposing. Definitely recommend it. And the Armory promos are amazing. And thank you, LSS, for making these new extended art Armory promos. Moving on, we have the Room Rager Swarm and Swarming Gloomveil. You'll notice that Room Rager Swarm is a 2 of. It's kind of awkward. Swarming and Swarm are our extenders. So you can, by default, pitch a blue, pay 2 to make a rune chant, and pay 1 to swing 3. So if you just fit a Swarming in there, and now your 1 card play is a 2 card play, you're making a rune chant, sending 3 go again into 3. This is a 2 card 7 that is simply split and disjointed in Runeblade fashion, but it is a still 2 card 7. This card is very good because then they combo together. So what if your hand is 2 Room Rager Swarms in a blue? Now you have a 3 card 10 or a 4 card 13. It's like Legos. They fit together so modularly, so effortlessly that they are the perfect extenders. When they don't work out with your hand, guess what? They still just block 3. It's easy. I will say whenever I am sideboarding and putting in any of the sideboard cards that we'll get to later in the video, the Room Rager Swarm followed by the Swarming Gloomveils are the first cards to get cut. These are not so core that they're necessary in every matchup. They just help you present damage, they help you keep pressure up, they help you extend, but they are not absolutely necessary to the success of the deck, and so the Swarms are the first things to come out when sideboarding. Last red, of course, we have Sink Below, the classic, the staple. Again, this hand has consistency, or this deck has consistency issues. It's pretty unavoidable at the cost card that we're forced to play in, so Sink Below hand fixing can be very, very crucial. That is it for our red threats here. Moving on, we have, of course, Plow Under, the flip side of Felling, another really good decompose with Disruption. It's not as good as Felling. Sometimes they don't have an arsenal, sometimes it's just for 2. But it's overall a very good card. I definitely recommend it. This card has been super impactful, and again, against decks like Enigma, where you just can't have an off turn. You need to constantly pressure, disrupt, pressure. This has had turns where, oh, they have a Mirror Guy in Arsenal that they're going to play the following turn, and I immediately get it out, or things like that. Moving on, Canopy Shelter is a card that I've not played a whole lot with. It's a late inclusion. Shout out to Zeph and James here in Colorado. He got me on this card. It's Very impactful. I was hesitant because it's a 2-block that I can't play out, so they just pass back. I can't do much with it. But again, blue card, you can immediately just pitch it for Grasp Reaping. So the 4 is still a disjointed 4. But this card is great because when you block with it, it creates a Might token, or it creates 2 Might tokens. This can be really good when you CNC for 7 or 8, or when you Felling for like 9 or 10, or when you Swarm for like 5 go again. Like there's so many ways where this Might is just extra impactful, either for 1-hits or just pushing damage. If you block 2 and make 2 Mights, that's a 1-card 4. Defensively, as a blue, that's so overrated. Even a 1-card 3 defensively can be very good. So this card is awesome. I highly recommend playing around with it. It is from the Terra First Strike deck, of course, as well as this card, Flourish. This is a buff to if something is already being buffed. So, you know, we don't have Nimblisms in here. How are things getting buffed? Well, we have Felling of the Crown, buffs itself. We have Plow Under, buffs itself. We have Swarming Gloomveil, buffs itself if you've made 2 auras. We have Enlightened Strike, can come in for +2. And we have Cadaverous Tilling, that also buffs itself from the sideboard, as well as Bramblespark from the sideboard. So we have plenty of sources of natural buffs that then, this is simply a blue earth, so I was just trying to get my blue earth count up. This is not one of the high impact cards, but it's nice because you can either just play it as a +2, or it just, you know, it just blocks 2. That's cool. But compared to Earthlore Bounty, or Earthlore Surge, Earthlore Surge is what we used to run back in Aria meta, or we're considering running. This is a 2-cost +3. You don't have to have a buff, but it is just a pay 2 for +3. The rate is pretty awkward and sad. So in that same sense, a pay 0 +2 is actually a really good rate. So it does come up a fair bit, and when it doesn't come up, it's been not uncommon for me to see this card like turn 1 and just play it out for no effect and pass. Yes, I didn't get the +2. Yes, I wasted a card, but I got an Earth card in grave, and man, turn like 1, 2, 3, you'd love to just dump an Earth card into grave as fast as possible. So the fact that this is a 0-cost go again that I can just play out and throw into the graveyard is actually really convenient too. So all in all, I do like this card. I don't think it's super core to the deck, but I do like this card a lot as an inclusion for all of those reasons. Moving on, Germinate is another absolute core card. Of course, it's our specialization. Man, this card is crazy. Does it come up every game? Absolutely not. Is it super high impact when it does come up? You bet it is. So, for example, at the Pro Quest where I got first seed before losing in top 8, I played against my teammate Dylan Williamson on Zen. And I played a turn 0, or my first turn, Germinate, pitching a blue, and a yellow Plow Under. So X equals 4. I created 5 Rune Chance, and I healed 5 life. So I started the game with a 10-point value swing at 45 and 5 chance up. It ended up being a close game, and I won with him at with me at like 3 life or something. And we both looked back and said, wow, yeah, that Germinate just won me the game. This turn 1 Germinate won me the game. This card is absolutely incredible when it comes up. Do not force it to come up. Definitely try and preserve one in your deck. Again, a lot of the skill expression of this deck is what threats you're preserving and how you're preserving them or deciding not to. Late game, of course, this card's powerful. I feel like we've all been on the receiving end of a Germinate for like 10 Rune Chance and heal 5 or something crazy. But even early game, this card can be absolutely awesome. Highly recommend Germinate. It's so good. Moving on, Oath of the Arknight is one of these cards where Florian has this whole identity as a deck right now. I think in almost all of his archetypes, not just this one, where you stuff these blue block 3 cards into your deck just to up the blue count, just to have more non-attacks or attacks or whatever your ratios need, and you don't really care what it does. So in this deck, we have Oath of the Arknight fits this slot, Sift fits this slot, Warmongers kind of fits this slot. There are plenty of other considerations too, like Condemned to Slaughter, and This Round's on Me, and plenty of others that I tried, like Truce. So Oath of the Arknight starts in the context of this, where it's just a blue block 3 that is in this giant pool of cards that we can include a few of that low impact block 3 blue non-attack. The reason why I think this card is so crucial moving forward is Jarl. So you normally rely on Grasp pretty heavily in this deck. You need ways to create a rune chant every turn to get that value out of your hero ability, so Grasp, it's like every turn you're activating Grasp. What happens when your Grasp gets popped? Suddenly your deck grinds to a halt and you're praying to draw an Arcane Seeds. Or you draw a channel and you go, oh crap, I can't make rune chant, so what do I do? So I think Oath of the Arknight saying create a rune chant in an upcoming Jarl meta will make this card more relevant. It's already not bad by any means. If you have extra cards in your hand, this creates 2 rune chants and buffs the sword to 4. It's a nice breakpoint. It definitely does come up sometimes, even without the Jarl context. But without Jarl in the meta, I would say this card, you know, give or take, you can replace it with something else. It's not a big deal. With Jarl in the meta, I do think this card becomes a lot more important. So Oath of the Arknight, create a rune chant, buff, blue block 3, doesn't do a whole lot more. Sift is another one of those blue block 3s, doesn't do a whole lot card. I initially scoffed this card and said, oh, it's terrible, why would I ever want this? And the more I played it, the more I really ended up liking this card. It really surprised me. So I would have these situations where the opponent would just pass and have 4 cards in my hand that do nothing, or 3 cards that do nothing. And so you could pitch into the grass, but often this would hand fix and either give me a much better hand, or it wouldn't give me a better hand. And you go, okay, well that's bad. Isn't that, you know, 50-50 maybe value? I personally hate maybe value. But the way that I do it, the reason I actually do really like this card, is if I sift 2 cards and I get nothing, my hand is worse than it was before, sword for 3, instead of 1 and 3. So I've sacrificed 1 arcane damage to draw 2 cards into my deck more. That to me is super impactful because a lot of times they'll come up twice. So I'm essentially skipping a turn. I'm drawing into my deck 1 turn faster. And when you're a deck where you're like, where's Arcane Seeds, where's Millennium Tree, where's that last Decompose I need, where's this? I'm trying to set up, like, you are inherently a pretty slow deck in a meta full of faster decks. So you drawing into your deck, even if you don't get a payoff for it, is pretty impactful, and it generally is pretty, like, I ended up liking this card a lot. Sometimes you will hand fix, and man, it feels incredible when you go from like 2 blues to a blue and a felling or something. But I wouldn't expect that. You're basically flipping a coin here if it's going to be a better hand or a worse hand, but either way, drawing 2 into your deck is awesome. I have So Tomorrow in here. It's currently at a 1 of. I've wrestled with this card a lot. I personally absolutely love the card. I was on 3 and then back down to 2, and now I'm backing down to 1. I could see going back to 2. So a few reasons I love this card. First of all, playing from Arsenal, drawing a card can be really good. It's a little awkward just forcing it into Arsenal, then waiting a turn, then finding the turn to play it, and having a valid target of cost 2 or greater, Earth or Elemental Engrave. So there's a lot of ifs here that make it a bit awkward. Not even playing it from Arsenal though, if you just play it at all, from hand or Arsenal, banish So Tomorrow. So one reason I liked running 2 or 3 of this card is a lot of the times I would play 1 super early. I would just get like a random Autumn's Touch or Channel or something engrave, so I have a valid target and play this out, and I go to 1 Earth and banish. A single Earth and banish. And then you draw Felling, and you decompose 3, and now the first Felling is for 8, even though it's your first decompose. So the fact that So Tomorrow puts itself in banish, unlike any other Earth card when played, can be very impactful. Lastly, I also really like this card because, as it says, you're putting an action card that costs 2 or greater back into the deck. So against new and other really, really grindy matchups where they're going to potentially deck you out and every threat counts, this is like Plume in the fact that it's an extra copy of the best card in your deck. Whether that's Channel this match, whether it's Felling, whether it's even, well, it can't be Arcane Seeds or So Tomorrow because it has to cost 2 or greater, but you get what I'm saying. It puts back a powerful card, it goes to banish to let an early decompose be good, it helps draw from Arsenal, so this card can be so high impact, if not a little bit awkward at times. Also, the art's just awesome. So I'm definitely on the fence on So Tomorrow. I personally would recommend running it at 2. I do not think it's necessary in the deck by any means. I do think you'd be fine running this exact same build without So Tomorrow at all, but I do love this card personally for all those reasons. Summer's Fall Blue is a staple in the deck. We don't really play it out that often. It's mostly just there if we need the extra decompose, if they happen to play an aura. It is a 2-block, unfortunately, but this is a main board decompose. We're just including to keep that decompose count up. So we, by default, have 3, 6, 9, 12. Whoa. My apologies. Felling, Carapace, Plow, and Summer's Fall puts us at a 15 core decompose. A quarter of our deck is decompose. So that's there just to keep the ratios up. And lastly, Warmonger's Mainboard. I don't love this. It's not great. First thing people are going to say is, well, what if New plays Warmongers back at you? Are you going to hit your own deck with Warmongers? And the answer is no, not really. No. Often you'll lead with Arcane Seeds. That's about it. Very often you'll just send an attack and pass, or an attack and pass. Warmongers does impact Grasp of the Arknight and Channel the Millennium Tree. These are the 2 main times where Warmongers does feel bad. It won't let you grasp and attack. It won't let you mill tree and attack. It doesn't come up enough played against me to really care. I don't really play it out and get hurt by it that much, which is my biggest concern. Again, Warmongers is fitting into this area of blue, block 3, non-attacks that I occasionally will play out and care about their text, but mostly are just blue, block 3, non-attacks with blank text. This is in here primarily for that and to counter Viserai. Not Azalea. I feel like Azalea is a pretty easy matchup for this deck, but man, Viserai is rough. So this is in here as tech for Viserai, sometimes Venset, but it's really not even that strong against Venset, and mostly as a blue block 3 non-attack. So this is the core list. This is the default 60. Again, 80% of the field, you're running these exact cards. This is your deck. This is it. It works pretty smoothly. Like I said, you do have some consistency issues. You do have hands that don't really do much, but then your outs to those are to either pitch stack or to hand fix with like E-Strike and Sync, to just grasp and sword, utilize your arsenal very well to set up. You are mostly trying to decompose by turn 4 or 5. And yeah, that's pretty much the core deck. Let's look at the sideboard here. So going a bit more, your worst matchups are Enigma, Runeblades, and Wizard. In that order. Enigma is hopeless, man. I think I played 15 games of Enigma, and I think I won 2 of them. One of which is because the opponent made a poor choice to throw his calming gesture at like 20 to 20 life. And the other game was because I high rolled and Enigma low rolled, which is kind of how it has to go. It is super tough, but regardless, I wanted to tech for it as much as possible instead of just punting the most popular deck in the room. So all of this sideboard, the entire sideboard goes into for Enigma. That's where we started here. All of these cards go in for Enigma, and you're like, okay, well, you said take out the swarms. How do we fit another 6 out? The answer is you take out D-Reacts. So we take out Carapace, we take out Sink Below, we keep Carapace. That way you have a little bit extra Decompose, or you have a little extra Hand Fix. You take out 6 of the 9 D-Reacts and the 5 Extenders, and you put in this full sideboard to just say, I'm going to do my best into Enigma. Going tall really helps. This can send CNC for 1 and 9 or such. It's very, very good at going tall and just wiping their board state, which is the name of the game into where you're trying to keep pressure up, you're trying to keep her off of board state and so on. This also comes up really well into Wizard as well. So Bramble Spark, view it as a replacement for D-Reacts, which means it only comes in against Enigma and Wizards. That is it. Bramble Spark can be a really good card. It can be really high impact. In my personal experience, it's been way too inconsistent to be worth it. It's like a 10 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10, and I don't like maybe value. I like cards that will always be a 10 out of 10, like Felling of the Crown, like Gem of the Millennium Tree. So this only comes in when I'm taking out D-Reacts, which is just Enigma and Wizard. Cadaverous Tilling is the exact same role. It only comes in whenever D-Reacts come out. Enigma, again, we like to go tall. When we're taking out Carapace and we're losing some Decompose cards, we're gaining back some Decompose cards to send a 3 for 8. Maybe it's a 3 for 10 with Flourish. Maybe it's just going extra tall and decomposing. In that same vein, Summer's Fall is here for Enigma and Runeblade. Again, our worst matchups are Enigma, Runeblade, and Wizard in that order. So here is the Enigma Wizard package. This is the Enigma Runeblade package. Summer's Fall, Guardian player, man, I cannot tell you how nice it is to play into any sort of Spectra, whether it's Prism or Enigma, and attack the face while also clearing a Spectra with the same action point. This cannot be understated with how amazing and juicy and wonderful the value is from playing a Summer's Fall and getting rid of a Spectra. But what if they don't have Spectra? A lot of Enigma aren't on Spectra. Well, that's cool too. You might think, well, let's just bottom Mirror Guy, and the answer is no. Do not do that. Do not bottom their Mirror Guy or any powerful aura that goes back into their deck. Instead, target a Spectral Shield that has a counter on it. All the time, when I would use this to bottom a Mirror Guy, well, they wouldn't kill me. You know, I would make it back to that cycle, and then they would just draw that Mirror Guy and absolutely dome me for death and a half if I wasn't already dead by that point. The fact that it goes to the bottom of deck rather than just being destroyed is a big deal here into Enigma. Do not take it lightly. Obviously, if it's like 1-1 and you don't think you'll come back to it, that's different. But it's Enigma, they block really well, they build that board state back up, they probably will come back to it. So very often, if not almost always, I will play the Summer's Fall looking to bottom their best Spectral Shield, and that's it. Because then it's just gone, it's out of the way, and sometimes you'll realize that that Spectral Shield that you bottomed or destroyed would have been there for 2, 3, 4 turns. So you're saving like 6 or 8 damage, which is equivalent to a Mirror Guy swing. So Summer's Fall is very, very good, but I would recommend targeting the tokens and not the cards themselves. Lastly, Weakest Link is my least favorite card in this deck. It doesn't really come up a whole lot. It was between this and Erase Face. Into -IO, I ran Erase Face, but now that she's gotten a ban, I don't think you really need that. I think Weakest Link would be better. This is good into Aurora, and it's good into Enigma, it's good into New. So it's okay. It goes into the matchups where it's relevant. That's about it. Everyone knows this card can be really good in relevant matchups. And that is this list. So again, default 60 into most of the field. Sideboard is exclusively for Enigma, Wizard, and Runeblade, or I should say Illusionist, Runeblade, and Wizard in that order. And let's look at some of the other considerations really quick here. Weakest Link, again, I think it's a good sideboard card. I think it helps into some of your worst matchups. Erase Face, I did run at the last week of ProQuest due to -IO. My plan was to just block, play Erase Face. Block, play Erase Face. And this works really well, but I do think now that she's been nerfed, we can probably just block and play other stuff and win still. Condemned to Slaughter is definitely worth considering into Enigma. I didn't love it just because the 1 cost makes it very awkward with your typical cost curve, and they get to choose what to destroy. So you're probably going to destroy a Spectral Shield that might not even have a +1 counter on it. It can be good. It's another one of those blue block 3 non-attacks that you mostly don't care about the text. But if Enigma is giving you a lot of problems, certainly try out this card. It might help you more than it helped me. Poison the Well, I did run at 2 of my 4 ProQuests just to counter Count Your Blessings. Again, this was before blue Count Your Blessings was banned. It definitely won me a game against Verdance. So I didn't play against Count Your Blessings New. I did not play against Count Your Blessings Enigma. I did play multiple Count Your Blessings Verdance. Verdance is not going to deck you out. Verdance is going to Count Your Blessings and kill you with that amp using her Rampant Growth. So I ran 2 Poison the Wells. And this is a card that you need to know the matchup. You need to have some experience into Count Your Blessings so that you know exactly when the right time to play Poison the Well is. By default, if you don't know this, I would recommend the first one you see, pitch it. The second one you see, park it in Arsenal. And when you come back to the one you pitched, play them both at the same time as a wombo combo. They can still play around it. It's not impossible, but it'll certainly put their back against the wall. And doing this, even though it didn't kill them on the spot when they started at 5 life, it still won me the game through the momentum of the following turns, making that play. So Poison the Well, very good into CYB, but you can't just play it out and expect to win. You need to play it very smartly, very correct into CYB for it to still win you the game. Sigil of Earth, I did have until recently. This is what became Canopy Shelter. So either way, it's going to be a blue 2-block Earth. That's non-negotiable in this slot. So it's between a block 2 that makes a Might, or a block 2 that occasionally lets you block a little bit more, and as we said, for Flourish, is just a 0 cost. You can just play and drop, and it's gone. I did like Sigil of Earth. I like the Marvel. I think it's very green. It's the greenest card I've ever seen in Flesh and Blood. But I think Canopy Shelter is honestly a higher impact card that is just going to consistently be better in the deck than Sigil of Earth. So that's where this came in, as I said, as a late inclusion. So tomorrow, I do think going out to 2 or 3 copies could be good. And lastly, this round's on me is another blue block 3 non-attack card that could be really impactful into Aurora or anything going wide like -IO. But I truly don't believe it's necessary. And that is Tree Hugger Florian in a nutshell. The deck is slow to mid-paced. You start out really weak, and by turn 4 or 5, you're online. By turn 6 or 7, you are really just a powerhouse. You're looking to play an Arcane Seeds to make 4 Rune Chance into a Felling, bottom of card, here's 8. You're looking to Germinate and just win the game off the Germinate on the spot. You're looking to channel the Millennium Tree and keep it for 3 turns and send 4 and 1, or 4 and 1 and 1. So if your hero's online and you grasp and make 2 Rune Chance and send Sword, you're sending 4, 1, and 3. That's a 1 card 8 off of channel, which initially is 2 extra cards for value. But again, you're leaking this damage, and that is so impactful. I've had games against like Azalea where Tree won me the game you wouldn't expect. So Tree is the core of the deck. Do not force it out. Do not take a ton of damage to be like, well, I have to play Tree. That's the deck. It is one of the core cards of the deck, like Felling. You try and play it out. You try and get the space too, but do not hard force it. It's just one of your big power cards. All in all, if you're not sure what to do, play it like a Guardian. Play it like slow and methodical. Preserve your armor block as long as you can. Preserve the plume for as long as you can. Don't just go as soon as it's like kind of good. Wait for a hand where, oh man, this hand is nothing and I need pressure, so now I'm going to plume. And that is the best advice I can give. If you have any questions about this list, feel free to ask any questions down in the comments below. I will have the deck list, of course, in the description below as well. Please check that out. Thank you for sticking through all this and for checking out the channel. I hope you enjoy Tree Hugger Florian, and I'll see you in the next one.